Yeah, so just to take you through some of the proceedings for today, it's a webinar, so you won't be able to turn your camera or your microphone, but you can use the chat. So we were using the chat for all questions. So you can ask questions along the way. It's pretty relaxed. We'll wait a few minutes so we can let people in to the room because people are coming through, and then basically we'll get started at about 12:05. We will definitely get you out of here by 1 o'clock. So the way it's going to work today is that I'm going to go through developing strategy and executing business goals. And I'll introduce myself first, and Maria will introduce herself so you can know a little bit more about us. Throughout the session, you can ask questions whenever you like, but we'll also have a question and answer at the end of our webinar. And at the end of our webinar, what we'll also do is we're going to send you a fact sheet with some notes. If you do wish to have a copy of the presentation, please request it. We'll send that through, but we're also going to send you a fact sheet from the items that Maria is going to cover as well. So without further ado, we were waiting for a few other people. Just if everyone's okay with it, I'm just going to wait a minute or so. Maria, do you have any jokes?
No, I don't.
No jokes. Okay. So yeah, because we had a few people register, so we just wait for people to come through. 1 more minute, and then respecting everyone's time, we'll get started. Just in the chat, if you could please type, what is your objective for today? That'd be great if you could do that while we wait. Don't all do it at once. Oh, here we go. Crystal's doing it. Because, you know, I mean, developing strategy looks different for everyone, but I think it'll be really good to understand the reasons why you'd like to. It looks like Crystal's writing quite a long.
It'll help us be able to hone in and ensure we address the issues everyone's keen to hear about too.
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, that's great, Pauline. Yeah, definitely we'll be talking about some of that. And of course, you know, any questions you ask us between myself and Maria, we've been in business for many, many years, and we'll definitely be able to do that. For Crystal, in regarding to insights to implement, yeah, we'll take you through that, because, you know, there's some great ideas and people have ideas all the time in business, but in relation to actually executing, some people struggle. And Crystal, perhaps with cash flow, will take you through, if you can ask that at the end, and then we can be a little bit more specific about that. But one of the things that I will say, my experience with having many franchisees, is that people get very confused about profitability and cash flow. So it'll be good to cover that off as well. So I'm going to get started, but like I said, Maria's going to monitor the chat while I speak, and while she speaks, I'll monitor the chat. But we'll just get started. So before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which I live, work and stand. I pay my respect to elders from the past, present, emerging, and extend First Nations peoples community. For me, it's the Wurundjeri peoples from the Kulin Nation here in Melbourne. And who am I? So I've had a very diverse, by the way, if I'm looking to my right, it's because I've got two screens, so it's not that I'm ignoring you, but I've had a very diverse career, and basically my career has been in IT. My early business, I worked for the National Australia Bank in operations systems and mainframe systems, but it's really helped me develop my skills in crisis management, planning and design of information systems, which you use in small business these days. But what do I do right now? I was the CEO of La Pulqueta for many, many years, and I stood down in February 2020. And I sat on the Franchise Council of Australia board for 9 years, but currently I am a board member of Family Business Australia. I'm the deputy chair. I am a board member and chair of Volunteers for Link Community and Transport, and I am the chair of Audit and Risk for Global Gardens of Peace, and I also run a small charity called Morakali Creating Hope Foundation. This gig is Affari SP, my business. It's a consulting business, and I mentor and coach business leaders to improve and grow their business. And if you look at my logo, it's about transformation. Affari means business in Italian, and SP means sustainable profit. Because one of the things that I also work with businesses on is triple bottom line. And it's not just about the finance, but it's also about the difference we can make in the world and the environment. That's me. Maria, who are you?
Thanks, Sara. So I'm Maria McQuillan. I own and operate Consonate Financial Services, and we do residential and business lending. I started my career in family business, running the family hotel, and then from there I moved into banking and mostly work in franchise systems, which is where I met Sara. We're on the board of the Franchise Council of Australia together. I worked in about half a dozen different franchise systems, doing lots of different things, from building business models from scratch to closing them down, working with franchisees to grow their businesses, to improve their profitability, reduce operating costs and lots of other things. And I started my finance broking business in 2020.
Thank you, Maria. What we're going to cover today is steps to develop business strategy and tips on how to ensure that you execute. But like I say, if you've got a question along the way, Maria's going to administer while I talk, and likewise, we can answer along the way, but at the end, we'll also have the opportunity. So what is strategy, right? Because strategy can be different for anyone, but it's really a plan of action designed to achieve long-term goals. It's long-term thinking. It's not just thinking about today. And you know, some consideration of building good strategies for the long term is having good insight to your business and understanding your purpose and the reason why you've got into it, as well as what you're trying to achieve for your client. But it's also about foresight. And, you know, it's interesting. I think was it Pauline that spoke about that she doesn't have competitors, I believe. Was it Pauline or Crystal?
Robin. That was Robin.
It was Robin. My apologies, Robin. So it's interesting because foresight doesn't really need to be about your competitors, because foresight is about what is happening in the world, what is happening around us that could impact us with the strategies that we set out, right? And you know, obviously a lot of people talk about COVID in the last few years, but really disruption in business is always there. Whether it's the digital revolution, whether it's do we work at the same pace, can we keep up, are our people keeping up with what is happening in the world that our clients are experiencing, and does any of it hinder us from being able to service them? So that insight and foresight, I'm really going to take you a little bit through a little bit more of that process, but it's really, really important to understand both. And do, Maria, keep me on time, because I'd like to get people early out before 1, and give you the opportunity to talk, because I love talking. But this strategic foresight that I was talking about, it's really staying abreast of key trends. And it's really you staying connected as a business, as a leader, all the time, and understanding. Some of the things I used to say to my franchisees, and, you mentioned competitors, is not watching what your competitors are doing 24/7, but it's really being aware of what's happening out there, and how do you leverage it or use it in your own business. But, some of the things that I've already spoken about is disruption in digital, but the information age is exponentially moving very fast. So if ourselves and our people can't keep up, you might have to have a strategy on how do we develop their skills. Do we need to upskill them because we never had a computer system, but we now do? And that's the reason why you have to stay abreast on what's happening outside. But, people talk about robotics, but putting it a little bit simpler, AI, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, what is it? Oh my goodness. Do you know that it's out there? Because just having the knowledge that it's out there and knowing that it exists, you may not use it in your business. That's okay. But knowing that it's there and knowing that it's available, then you choose how to do it. And these are just some of it. But, cybersecurity is something that everyone's talking about, because we had the incident with Optus of recent times. But going back at NAB, I was part of the disaster recovery team, right? And in disaster recovery, you worked out your risks and you worked out how do you mitigate them as well. And with cybersecurity, small businesses are very vulnerable. They're not just vulnerable, having a small business and just having a virus checker is not enough anymore, because the new fraud is now happening online. And if you are not aware of this space, your business could go under. So you might have the most awesome sales strategy to grow, but if you don't have a cybersecurity strategy on how to protect your business, you could go under. I actually know someone, a gentleman that is on a board with me, and his laptop got hacked and he had ransomware and he didn't have a backup. So simple things like a backup, right? So that foresight is all about that. You may not use all of it, but you need to be aware of it. And you need to run a strategy to understand what is out there that you may use in your business. And, that foresight might be that long-term thinking. Okay, we don't have a computer system now, but we may need a computer system. What does that look like? How do we assess it? And it's really about, when you're doing a strategy day per se, I would run workshops for businesses that have staff, right? And we'd say, okay, we've got the status quo, but should we be challenging some of the assumptions that we're making because of what's happening out there and considering what's happening out there? Disruptive technologies that might be coming up in our business. When I was a lapopeta, we did not do deliveries. And it wasn't because we couldn't. It was because, right? I'll come back to you, Pauline, in a moment. It was because it was expensive to do deliveries and there was a lot more risks to consider that we didn't want to tackle. And so basically, I'm just letting another person in. So basically, what we did, when Uber came out, at the end of the day, we knew and we had to do something about it, because people were choosing to actually get food delivered at home. So even though we didn't want to do the deliveries from a risk perspective, we had no choice because the market dictated, there was a disruption in the market. So therefore we needed to act. So what we made sure that we did is we developed strategies around how we were going to do it, how would it work in La Poqueta, and what would that look like. And we invested in online, we invested in many things, and then we tested it in about 3 restaurants before we rolled it out across the group so we could iron out any issues. But also foresight is about what does it look like for the future? This is what we look like now. What is out there that could either help us or that could actually be a threat to us? So that strategic foresight is really, really important. I want to go back to a question in regards backups and so forth for iCloud. Pauline, from my knowledge, and I'm not an expert in this space anymore, I also use Microsoft 365 and OneDrive. So my business is all cloud-based. And absolutely, I know that Microsoft and Google, they do have backups, right? So they should be able to recover should something happen. However, what I do, I also back myself up on a hard drive. So because I'm a little bit risk averse in that way. So a backup of a backup, shall I call it? But yeah, but you do check with who is actually hosting your data, and definitely they'll be able to answer that. But what does strategic planning look like? You know, I'll take you through this process, but I will say this to you. What I do, how I start with my clients, is I do a SWOT analysis. If you haven't heard what a SWOT analysis is, it's quite a simple kind of tool that we use in identifying the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our business. And why I start at that point is because I say that basically in relation to our business, the SWOT analysis is a health check in a point in time. So you wouldn't just do it once, right? But as a starting point, when I start this with my clients, I actually tend to find out if they do have insight into their business. I use that as an insight analysis tool. And I want to see if they are realistic about their business or not, because that's really important for me to know. But along the way, you need to have awareness that you need to plan. Sounds simple, right? But you'd be very surprised at how many people think they can just run a business by the seat of their pants. So formulating goals is not as difficult as you would think, because if you do a SWOT analysis, the goals open up on their own because, our weaknesses are, guess what? If you've got a few weaknesses in your business, you need to develop a strategy to fix that weakness. So one of the weaknesses might be, I don't have a backup strategy for my data. Right? So you're exposed. That's an internal weakness, right? And so really you formulate a strategy to create that, and beneath that strategy, there will be action plans. And, you know, that foresight that I spoke about earlier, it's analysing the external environment. Some of the analysing the external environment is understanding what's out there, but it is also understanding your competitors, but more to the point, understanding your client and understanding your client needs. Sometimes I don't even know what their needs are. You may need to determine it. One of the things we did at La Poqueta is, and some of the really big, hairy strategies that we developed were around gluten-free, vegan menu, and so forth. One of the things we recognised was, me, I'm Italian, I say, really, gluten-free pizza? No. Why? Just don't eat it. But the reality is people don't want to miss out. So we developed some really strict strategies around gluten-free and vegan. Were we going to be a restaurant for vegans to come to that are staunch vegans? No. But what we did, by understanding the external environment, that veganism was on the increase, right? And we knew that because we actually got a report from Harvest World that told us what the food trends are. And that's how we kept abreast of the external needs in the food industry. And when we did, our sales went up. They didn't go up because of how many people eat vegan, because it's only about 1.5%, but they went up because families were coming together and saying, we can all go out together now, because our person that has a dietary problem or eats vegan now can come to La Boqueta, so we're booking family outings. It's fantastic. So our sales went up because we were able to be welcoming and inclusive. So whatever that looks like for you is really important. The internal environment is also important, because I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that are awesome, clever people, but they go, oh, I'm going to achieve this by this. You know what? I'm big on big, hairy goals, right? No worries. Set ostentatious goals, because if you don't set them, you're not going to get there. But at the end of the day, understand whether you have the resources, and that is human resources or technology resources, to be able to achieve it, or the equipment. You may want to grow. You may want to set a strategy to grow, but you may need to purchase equipment and you may not have capital for that. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So analysing the internal environment means you need to understand your business at that point in time. And that's why SWOT is really great. Identify strategic opportunities and threats. When we're doing a SWOT, this does it for us, right? Because we start getting our thinking caps on, and basically, in relation to threats and opportunities, are external to your business. They're not internal to your business, because an opportunity might be an opportunity for a new client or market. It might be an opportunity for a new service proposition. For us, it was catering. We never did catering, but when we introduced catering, it was one of the things that everyone loved doing. And I tell you what, during COVID, a lot of that was done through La Boqueta, even though I wasn't there. And we developed catering because we knew there were people that were out there catering, and we knew we were no longer just competing against restaurants, because talking about that external disruption, it was also people doing packaged food in a box, as we know, right? You can get it delivered with all the ingredients. So restaurants are no longer competing. So understanding that, if we do catering, we make it easy for them, because we'll prepare it for them and they just take it home. But performing the gap analysis is really understanding the things that you don't have in your business to be able to achieve your goals. It's really important to know that, because you can't have an action against that if you don't know it. And also alternative strategies. One of the things that I work with my clients on is creating crisis management plans. What if? What if the proverbial hits the fan? What if this doesn't work? What is our alternative? What else can we do? What else can we do to mitigate a problem? What else can we do if this growth strategy doesn't work? What is our backup? It's very, very important for you to know that when you are preparing to do your strategies, because it's not the end of the world if it doesn't work, because you've got a backup. But then, you know, one of you asked about, I don't know how to execute. It's difficult to execute. Well, that is the one thing the small businesses are crippled with, unable to execute. And you must implement your strategies. When you set out a strategy, let's say you do a 3-year plan, and then you revisit it every 12 months, you may not execute everything. But it is important that you have a business action plan to execute that everybody's part of. And the way I did it at La Boqueta, when I had the highest performing team, is that what we did is we developed the strategies together, but then I said to my team leaders, you have to go away and tell me what is your piece of the puzzle. What do you need to do for us to be able to achieve that big strategy? What does marketing need to do? What does operations need to do? So marketing needed to give us all the trends on menu. They needed to analyze the trends on drinks menus, on food menus, what was coming up. And operations needed to also, excuse me, I just need to admit someone. My mouse is not working. Just bear with me for a moment.
Sara, I've admitted.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And so I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, to implement the strategy, I went away and said, this is what operations needs to do. This is what our finance needs to do. And then they had their working in progress. So in some projects we used Asana, in some projects we used spreadsheets, but then the whole business worked towards achieving the big strategy, but they then had their business action plans for their departments. But last but not least, you need to measure. What does success look like? What does success look like? Determine that when you set out the strategy. And then measure it. Make sure you measure it. Make sure you set some, the way we did it at La Boqueta is we set departmental key result areas. So the marketing department had certain key result areas, and then each individual had a KPI. And then when we measured the success, there might have been financial measurement. There might have been non-financial measurement. Let's say we were looking, one of the strategies was to grow our online presence. And in actual fact, that was one of the strategies that we did. So our marketing department mostly drove that. And basically, what we did, we said, okay, what does success looks like? Success looks like getting 100,000 followers. Success looks like getting an open rate on our EDMs by a certain percentage, whatever that was. And it's got to be a smart goal. It's got to be something that's realistic. It's got to be something that you can measure, and it's got to be something that you can say, yes, it's working. No, it's not working. One measurement is not a deal breaker, but a trend is a deal breaker, because you may need to make a decision. I need to stop doing this because this is not working for me. And that's really important. Measurement is key. But one of the things that I've seen, and why a lot of the times our strategies don't work, don't resonate, don't make sense, is because we may not have clarity of purpose. So one of the things I work with my clients on is not only working our strategic strategies, strategic goals, but also understanding their purpose in their business, their purpose, why they started doing this, and really being really clear on that, really having a very clear purpose and vision, right? And understanding, is your game to solve customer problems? Is it to speed to market? What is your edge, right? What is your purpose? And, for me, it's about empowering leaders. That's my purpose, because I think you cannot have successful business without leadership, right? That's my purpose in my business. But what does yours look like? What's your vision? The La Boqueta vision back in the day was to be the largest Italian restaurant in Australia and New Zealand. That had nothing to do with our client. Would our client give a damn about that? Absolutely not. So when you're setting your vision, it's got to be client-centric. It's got to be, if you're saying, oh, I'm going to set a strategy to be client-centric, well, your vision better be client-centric, because if it isn't, you're in trouble, And so when we revised it with the team, it became, we create the Italian experience you create the memories. That's a bit different, isn't it? Because then it becomes about the client. Yes, we will facilitate it, but you create the memories. So it wasn't just about the food. It was about creating the experience. And when we started rolling that out, you know, La Poqueta isn't for everyone. It's casual dining. It's made from scratch. It's fresh. But at the end of the day, we were really good at marketing that, because very early in the days we were about cheap pizza. When we started changing that vision, we started rolling that out internally, it made a huge difference. That clarity of purpose. One of my clients recently said to me, she was a startup, gorgeous woman, using sustainable products to create embroidery earrings and necklaces. Absolutely gorgeous. And it was really difficult. She goes, I want to do this, I want to do this. She had 10 million ideas. We did a SWOT analysis, but then I said, no, we need some clarity. I want to understand your purpose. She had loads of things everywhere. We did her purpose and we articulated it, and it was so amazing. She then sent me, because she had all these beautiful designs. She's a really creative kind of person. She sent me an email. She goes, now that I have a purpose, everything makes sense. I've already appointed the designer to do my logo because I had it in my head already. And so, you know, but for a business, if you don't have clarity of purpose and everybody's not on board, it is very difficult for a leader to inspire. So it is important, because strategic goals without inspiration, they don't work. So this is what I believe is important in setting strategy. You know, everything we do every day to make it happen is operational, right? But you have to start with a clear purpose, vision, mission, and set of values. You know, and the purpose is why you exist. The vision is what is your future aspiration when you achieve your mission for your client, and your mission is what you do every day. The mission is the operation, right? And the set of values is how you behave. So, you know, one of my values is accountability. And why is accountability one of my values? Because I need to be accountable to my clients. But at the same time, my clients need to be accountable to me. If I see that a client is procrastinating, I will not tell them what they want to hear. I will tell them what they need to hear. But at the same time, if I see that they're struggling and they are just really struggling, well, then I provide support. So that's why one of my values is accountability. Obviously, what we're talking about today, you need to set, if you want to grow your business, you want to transform your business, you need to set some strategic goals. You need to set some pretty ostentatious, as Bill Collins puts it, hairy goals. If you don't, you don't get anywhere, because what do? You know, you just run around from doing this, from doing this, from doing this, from doing that. You need to be clear on it. But then you need to set some short, medium, long-term, actionable and realistic goals, right? They've all got to be aligned to your strategy, right? But what do I mean by that? Let's say you do a SWOT analysis and one of your weaknesses is that you're resource poor. You will not be able to achieve your long-term goal if you're resource poor. Let's say you want to start a new product line, but you don't have the equipment to do it. You then need to do a budget as an action to actually say, okay, oh, I don't have the capital, I may need a bank. That's what Maria's going to cover, right? She's going to cover, if I need capital for the business, how do I get that, right? So, of course, the short-term goal is determining the equipment you need, determining the amount of capital and budget, and then the long-term goal is actually making it happen. And obviously, I'm like a broken record on this. Measure, so review, measure, and ensure that it's working. And by the way, stop doing what's not working. Stop. Do not be afraid to stop. That's one of the things that businesses keep doing the same things, you know, the old saying, and expecting a different result. Just stop doing it if it's not working. Do not be afraid to do it. And by the way, you've got to bring the team for the journey. If you think that you as a leader and as a business owner, you set the strategy, you know what? It's alone. It's very lonely at the top. Doing it on your own, if you've got a team, forget it. Even myself, I'm a solopreneur, but I have an IT provider. I have someone that helps me with social media strategy. I can't do everything on my own, right? So it's really important that you bring the team. I'm going to move fast so Maria has an opportunity to speak. But strategy pitfalls, what do I see that goes wrong? Okay. Small business owners, guess what? We want to do it all. We want to do it all. And we don't make choices, and we have 10 million ideas, and we don't make any of them happen. Obviously, not executing. We create the great ideas, we don't execute any of them. Or we try and execute all of them, we don't get any of them right. Strategic goals need to be customer focused. Even if it's internal, how will it improve? Well, it could be something internal that improves the employee's life so that your employees can be more productive, right? But it's got to say, how is it going to improve my customer? How will it benefit my customer? How will it benefit? Because, you know, people focus, oh, can I better my business? Guess what? If you think about the customer, you will improve your business. Because guess what? Customers evolve. Customers are not static because we get older and the customers come in and out of being your customers, right? La Poqueta, classic. Ideal customer, young family, right? But guess what? Secondary, teenagers. So we had all the teenagers doing their first dates because we're in a la carte restaurant. And they'd come to us, you know, when they're 17, 18, especially when they're 18, 19, because they can order a glass of wine. Then when they get a better job, we lose them because they go to a better fine cuisine. Then they have kids and they come back, right? So customers come in and out. You're not agile enough. This is one of the pitfalls, and this is about that foresight. You are not agile enough in your business. You're not adapting fast enough. As the world is moving fast, we need to understand. And you know what? Sometimes you look at the external and what goes on and what your clients need, you may not need to take any action. Not taking action is being agile, if that's the right thing to do. But don't try to be something for everyone. Understand your ideal clients. You may have a primary, secondary market, but understand your clients and focus on your clients. Yes, I understand you may get other clients that don't meet that demographic. However, right, they will happen anyway. But you need to focus on your core. That's really important. So what are my tips? Involve your team. If you have a team, make it realistic and executable. Only one person accountable with collaborators when you are setting out who's in charge of a particular strategy. So it might be you, it might be a team leader, it might be an individual. I made the mistake where I made a couple of people accountable. Guess what happens? Oh, he said, they said, she said, whatever. Doesn't work. Accountability, clear set of actions below your strategic goals. The whole business works on the strategy. Each department has their own piece of the puzzle, and each individual has a task to do. Make it very clear. Make your plan part of what you do every day. So what I did with my team and the way we did the big strategies for the big projects is we would have a strategy, then marketing had their piece, operations had their piece, and then what I would do is I would have one-on-one meetings with my team leaders every fortnight. Every other fortnight it was a team leaders meeting, and the team leaders meetings was about progress on the strategy, where we're at. So my team could not work on anything that wasn't involved with our strategic plan or a crisis or something the customer needed. They're the three things. All we focused was on our strategic objectives, our client, and a crisis. That was it. Don't waste your time on peripheral stuff and people dragging you into their crap. Measure, review. I told you I'm going to be a broken record, and act. So, an example of a strategic plan, I've given you a few along the way, but just to articulate it, take advantage of an opportunity for a new market, a new product, revisit your ideal client offering, whether it's still relevant, refresh your business purpose. At La Boqueta, we did it every 5 years. Refresh your logo and brand aligned to that. Create revenue growth. We'll focus on that today. And let's say we want to grow our business and we need capital. How are we going to do it? Maria's going to cover a little bit about that. And this dovetails beautifully into her presentation.
Thanks, Sara. So if you're seeking finance to grow your business, there's a fair bit of information that we need from you. The bank will look at what we call the 5 C's of credit, and that's character, and I'll go into that in more information shortly. And that's character of the business owner or other key members of the business. The conditions that apply at the time, that can be economic conditions. Collateral, so that's whether you've got security for any lending. Capital is what you bring to the party. So if you need to borrow $200,000 to grow your business, how much of your own cash are you putting in? And capacity, which is your ability to repay the debt. With character, so I want to expand on this a little bit. Your resume as a business owner is really important. I speak to a lot of business owners who said they don't have a current resume because they don't apply for jobs anymore. If you're seeking finance, your resume is very important. So I'd encourage you all to keep your resumes up to date, because a lender will want to know that you have deep experience in the industry within which you operate and what some of your key successes are over time. So that's quite an important document to maintain. Financial management, and this goes to your question, Pauline. When a bank wants to get some sort of gauge as to, number one, whether you have good financial management practices in place. That's bookkeeping, accountancy, using software like Xero, but they also want to know that you as a business owner understand your numbers. Financial management is also one of the things banks gauge is if they ask you for some additional financial information, whether it's through your broker or they ask you directly, how quickly you are able to provide that information is an indicator of the financial, health or how financially organised your business is. Your credit report, so we gauge a lot of information about the character of a borrower from a credit report. A credit report shows 5 years of data, and it shows 5 years of credit inquiries. It shows the last 2 years of actual repayments and all active loans, regardless of when you took them out. Banks will often also do a bankruptcy search for self-employed borrowers, and that data stays on your file for 20 years. So that's an important thing to consider as well. Now, as business owners, it's good to always know. Sara, we can see your word.
Sorry.
But no, that's all right, just in case anything comes up. One thing to keep in mind is that as a business owner, well, all of us really now should be aware of what's on our credit files. Some new legislation came in recently where credit reporting agencies, and they're listed there as Equifax, Ilion and Experian, they are required to provide you with a free credit report every 3 months. Now, the key one used by banks is Equifax, and Ilion is often used by banks as well, particularly for self-employed clients. But all 3 of those you can contact once a quarter for a free credit report. You can set alerts on your credit files as well, so that if any inquiries are made on your credit files, you can be notified. And that's important in order to identify any fraud being committed. Identity theft is huge. Sara's touched a bit on cybersecurity and stuff like that. I'd encourage you all to have as much security you can on that in that area. Identity theft is happening every day, and people are having their identity stolen, and then finance applications are being made under the stolen identities. So, and that can impact your credit file. Now, capacity is where we determine, or a bank determines, how much you can afford how much debt you can afford to repay. We look at your financial data, and your financial data tells a story. So as we read and interpret that financial information, we look for consistencies. We also look for inconsistencies. Currently, we're also looking at, was your business impacted by COVID? Did your business bounce back after lockdowns? If not, why not? If it did, how did you achieve that? And how will you sustain that? Do your current figures align to historical figures, or are you on a growth trajectory or a downward trajectory? It's very difficult getting lending for some businesses that were COVID impacted while we're in the middle of COVID. And this is where your financial data also needs to tie into your business plan or your action plan, because the banks want to understand exactly what your intentions are when there are some difficulties in your business. One thing that a lot of people don't realise is when you're applying for a business loan, the bank will also go through your personal assets and liabilities and your personal income and expenses with a fine-tooth comb. So if you run a business and you have a life partner and your partner is not involved in the business, we will still need to know what your partner's income is, if they have any other liabilities of their own that need to be covered within the household, and all that information is analysed, as well as your business's income and expenses. And you can see in the little example that I've got here, in financial year 2019, sales were at 12,000, but in financial year 2020, it was 352,000. There's a huge difference. Now, there's a clear explanation. 2019 was a startup year. It could also be that something else had happened. Perhaps there was illness, that the owner of the business may have gotten sick and paused business operations that year, and the 12,000 was just invoices that had come through from financial year 2018. So we need to understand what's the story behind those figures. Next slide, thanks, Sara. Capital is where if you're looking at a growth strategy, and growth can come either from growing your existing business, or you may acquire another business and roll it or fold it into your business. Normally, banks will look at doing a 50% lend on unsecured lending. So if you're buying a business, say you want to acquire another business to roll it into yours, and you want to you're buying another business for $200,000. If you're looking at unsecured debt, banks will typically lend you $100,000, and you'll need to come up with the other $100,000. If it's what we call an accredited franchise system, and out of the 1,200 franchise systems in Australia, only about 80 or 100 are actually accredited with a bank, which means a bank has effectively reviewed the system and given it a green tick. Then you can borrow up to 60% of the price without security. Or if you've got property as security, you can actually borrow 100% of the debt. When you're looking at growing an existing business, perhaps you need a new piece of machinery, or you've got a marketing strategy, you need to build a new website. In some of those instances, you can actually borrow up to 100% unsecured. We look at how much equity you have in the business. So if you pull all your money out of your business every year, and or if you're not building assets within your business, then that can impact the viability of a loan application. We also look at equity in the property, and I've talked about already your contribution. Personal guarantees are generally required. So not only does your company or trust will be a borrower, but also directors of the company are generally asked to provide personal guarantees. And if your life partner is not part of your business, but you're going to borrow money and use your home as security, and your partner is a co-owner of your home, they may also need to provide personal guarantees. Most likely they will. And that brings me to the next point, which is around business and family. Obviously, when you are borrowing for your business, or you make certain decisions about financial decisions about your business, that has a broader impact on your family situation, and that can add certain complexities into the transactions and some of your decision making. So the lines between business and personal are quite blurred a lot of the time. Your business plan needs to tie into and explain the financial data that you present to a bank. And so those two documents go hand in hand. I think I'll leave it there, Sara.
Thank you, Maria. I just want to add something to that. So our next webinar will be about business planning, and I'll cover the process of business planning and what does the business plan process look like. And Maria will cover what a bank is wanting in a business plan. But just to touch on that family business stuff, and a lot of us are family businesses, it's really important if you grow a family business, and I certainly had a lot to deal with in this one, and you keep your assets under your family business intertwined with your business, as you grow, it becomes a problem. So it's really important that you get a really good structure there, so that you unravel it, and as you grow your business, you detach those personal, as you pay down debt, you detach those securities, because I've seen quite messy things happen in that space. But yeah, thanks for covering that, Maria. So this is the time for questions and answers, and then we'll let you know. I'll let you know what more webinars are coming through. So did you want to go in the chat? And so perhaps we should cover some of the questions from prior, which was about execution. I hope that I covered that throughout the slides, but it's really about cascading your strategic goal into smaller actions, and depending on who's got to do it, right? So for you to be able to execute, the whole team's got to be involved. But let's say for myself, I was a solopreneur, and some of my clients are working on their own. Well, then we set out who else is going to collaborate with you. Is it your web designer? Is it someone else? What are you going to focus on? So really important that you have who's accountable and setting really clear deadlines. It's really, really important. In regards to your cash flow and you creating cash flow for your business, there's many ways to do that. Some businesses do it by reinvesting their profit in their business and keeping a reserved amount of profit that will stay in the business to be reinvested, right? Some of it is going to a bank and borrowing because you need to achieve something. So unless we know your specific circumstances, it's really, really difficult to say how you would create cash flow. Did you want to add anything to that, Maria?
Yeah, with cash flow, I'd say look at your payment terms. If you can pay suppliers, if you can extend your payment terms with suppliers, do that. And obviously you want, one thing that you can do is you can ask for, if it's done in your industry, because you don't want to operate too far outside of your industry norms, but potentially when people make an appointment, they pay a deposit that can help with cash flow. So you look at how you can bring payment received forward and negotiate longer payment terms with suppliers.
Yeah, and Robin, in relation to you not having competitors, and you're setting out the strategic goals, I'd say you look at your industry, understand your industry, and see what's happening externally and what is coming forward as technology or initiatives or what other people are doing internationally, and it'll help you improve your business to create strategies that are very specific for yourself. And you know what? A competitor may come along, and it's also about how will you stay abreast if competitors do come along. How are you going to tackle that? It might be by doing more marketing for that particular month or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think just, Robin, in relation to that, one thing that I would consider is you want to gather data through market research wherever possible. And I don't do social media in my business, so Sara might know better than me, but through LinkedIn and I think Facebook as well, you can do online surveys, and I don't know that there's a cost associated with that. So I think your data and what would inform your data, your strategy would be feedback from customers and pain points from others in your industry. So with funeral directors and stuff like that, if there's key pain points that they experience with their clients, having those insights, which I'm sure you're all over, then you address the pain points.
Very good, very good. Any other questions?
I think just Pauline mentioned like for financials, and I think a key thing with financials is I'd encourage you to play with Xero wherever possible. You can run reports and stuff like that. Often your bookkeeper may categorize certain expenses in certain areas, and sometimes I'll ask a client, you know, what's this expense here? And they say, I'll have to go and ask my bookkeeper. If it's not clear to you, then speak to your bookkeeper about changing your chart of accounts so that the numbers can be immediately clear to you and what they relate to. But I find that the best way to tackle or gain understanding of the financials is, you know, your business better than anyone else, but do the numbers, when you look at a Xero account, do your numbers make sense to you? And if not, maybe you need to change your chart of account in Xero. And there are some really simple cash flow spreadsheets made available by banks, and I'm happy to share some of those. Play around with one. As you work through it slowly, you start to get more and more comfortable with numbers and spreadsheets. It's not about getting it right, it's just about developing that familiarity. And then you start changing numbers to see what's the impact if I change this figure.
Yeah, but also, this is great advice, Maria, but also work with your accountant. So one of my clients that we're doing measuring and we're setting up a board, they're a larger business. There was a lot of GLs, general ledgers, on their P&L that they didn't recognise. Get rid of them. If you don't recognise them, they've got to make sense to you, right? So you sit down with your bookkeeper or your accountant and you work through how your revenue is displayed, how your expenses are displayed, and it should be really clear. Right? Should be really clear to you how things also are bundled. Because, you know, sometimes you have sub-ledgers. So if you can't answer it, it hasn't been done for you, right? So really sit down with them and do that. And if you need to change it, change it. So I'm privy of time, and I said I'll let you out early. So if there's no more questions, I'll just let you know we're running the Effective Business Planning in March on the 22nd. At the same time, I'll be running one on crisis management planning, and I'll have a media expert joining me, and I'm looking to have a crisis management expert as well. And in May, it's building your business purpose, vision, mission, and values. Welcome to join us. Welcome to share with your friends. Thank you very much for coming today. And Maria, did you want to add any last things to say?
Only that the best thing is that that you guys do is continue to attend seminars and get whatever knowledge you can to continue to run amazing businesses that I know you do run.
All right, great. Ladies and gents, have a great day and hope to see you at our next one. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Feel free to reach out to us as well. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll get in touch, Pauline. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.